How are you feeling about the direction of the USA right now?
Ugh, I mean, it's a broad question. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that there's been forget even politics. There's been, and I don't know, if it's exactly the same on your side of the pond, but no question, there's been an enormous cultural shift that I think kind of has culminated in the last, or maybe has not culminated, but certainly has been more evident leading up to the presidential election and after. But there's been, the thing that I've always been most encouraged by and most optimistic about is that I essentially see corporate media as state propaganda. And I think that even though we may look at a country like, say, North Korea or something like that, where the media is directly run by the state and say that's state media, what we have is something different. I think in effect, the corporate media has always been the propaganda arm of the regime. And that has, I mean, it's been happening over the years, but it's never been more apparent and kind of official that entire propaganda apparatus has been shattered, and that shows like this show and lots of shows on the internet are now the new center of the media, and they're not propaganda arms of the regime. And there might be very important differences between, Tucker Carlson or Joe Rogan or Patrick Bet-David or any of these guys with huge platforms, but they're outside of control of the intelligence agencies and control of the political class in a way that it makes me think, hey, I think we have a fighting shot to control the narrative going forward, or at least have some input in the broader cultural narrative. And so I'm very encouraged by that. In terms of the actual mechanism of government, I think Trump has had some, like, if I'm judging his appointments, I think he's had some very good appointments. I think he's had some very bad appointments. We'll see what can actually get done there. Like, even like from my perspective, Tulsi Gabbard is the director of national intelligence was like a great pick. She hasn't been confirmed yet. And even if she is confirmed, taking on the intelligence agencies isn't as simple as we got the director of national intelligence in there, therefore the CIA is all cleaned up or something like that. Like there's still a lot to be done. And it's going to be very interesting to see whether these attempts are successful or not.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, if people just think back to where we were 8 years ago, not just 4 years ago even, but 8 years ago, and you think back to the 2015, 2016 time period, and you look at what is happening now, it would have been unthinkable to the vast majority of people. The thing that gives me a lot of hope looking at it from a distance is the actual unification that is going on, where you're having these people who, both inside and outside of politics, inside and outside of even the administration, people who are seemingly, a few years ago, they would have seemed disconnected and that they don't have much in common. Maybe they're even in different parties. They're loved by different groups of people, but there's this unification that is happening where all the people of good heart and sound mind, both inside and outside of politics, are all finding each other. And what's really fascinating about it, I'm noticing that as someone who's constantly traveling, it goes beyond the USA as well. It's not just happening in the States. It's this global thing where everybody is just finding each other. I mean, in a parallel universe, someone might think yourself and myself don't have much in common. We're citizens of different nations. We're in different backgrounds, different things. But it's like, what is it that's connecting these people? And we are both connected. We both know a lot of the same people, and then they're connected to these people, and it totally makes sense in a way. But through the things that most people think connect people, it wouldn't make sense to them. Does that kind of compute?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. And there's something, the part of the reason I think why there's this kind of broader awakening across the Western world is that, it's so something like within COVID, it's not as if like just the United States of America or just the UK was going through this. It was the entire civilized world had the exact same response to the pandemic. And a lot of this is because essentially we're kind of all one thing. And that's not to say that like there aren't differences between these different nation states, but there is, you know, since the end of World War II up until now, the Western world has been under what, you know, people have different terms for it. Like the neoconservatives will like to call it like hegemony, or sometimes they would use the term the New World Order, which of course was then jumped on by what are known as conspiracy theorists. And now when people think of the term New World Order, they think of like Alex Jones or something like that. But this was a term that Henry Kissinger and George H.W. Bush, like this is what they were calling the post-World War II consensus, the rules-based international order. And, you know, whatever you want to call it, they're all just euphemisms for empire, for America running the world. And that's not to say that there's no input from the UK, or there's no input from, say, London or Brussels or, you know, any of these other centers. But I mean, let's get real. This is all one group, you know, this is one set of interests. And you could see that with, say, something like the war in Ukraine or something like that. It's not the US funding Ukraine, it's NATO, the US, all the NATO countries. And so in a sense, we're all living under extensions of the same governing body. And I think the thing like that, if you were to say like, hey, me and you, I'm sure we could find several, you know, areas of disagreement politically where we have different, you know, different policy prescriptions for different issues. And that's true with Patrick Bet-David and Tim Pool and Candace Owens and Joe Rogan and like and Tucker Carlson and all of them. There'll be lots of differences. But the thing that kind of unites all of us is being opposed to the blatant, rampant corruption that is like, that permeates all of these countries in the Western civilized world. And there's this very interesting dynamic where all of these countries are rich nations because of the extent that they had liberty for many years. And then we've lived through the rise of powerful nation states as they've, concentrated more and more power in central banks, in centralized governments, in global governance organizations like the UN and NATO and things like that. And there's just been tremendous atrophy, and the system has become so nakedly corrupt. And then the system kind of embraced this very left-wing, quasi-neo-Marxist, you know, what we would call like wokeism or critical race theory or all of this stuff that's just so stupid and toxic and just poisonous to society. And in a sense, that's kind of what we're all unified around. That's why we're all finding each other, because we are all in opposition to that insanity.